So in this video, I'm going to talk about how I owe the IRS over $400,000 when I first started driving a truck. This is something that I have never talked about on this channel before. No particular reason why. I just had never discussed it before. This issue still hasn't been fully resolved, but it's close enough now to being resolved that I do feel more comfortable talking about it on YouTube. So that's what I'm going to get into in this video. So let me start off real quick by saying this video is going to be essentially for the self-employed individuals, new owner-operators, new self-employed truck drivers, independent truck drivers. As a matter of fact, if you are a new business owner, an independent business owner, entrepreneur, self-employed from any field, and you get value from this video, consider subscribing to the channel. That is essentially who I am and the background that I come from. So most of my content, a lot of my content will always be relative to that audience. So let's get right into it. So I want to share with you how I ended up owing that much, obviously. And I want you to get something from this video as well. I got three takeaways for you. Three basically things to help you. Three things that I learned as a result of going through this experience. I'm gonna give that to you at the end of the video, so be sure to stick around to the end. To help you understand how I came to owe that money, I gotta go back to when I started making the money that allowed me to owe that, which was back in 1996. I was 21 years old and I was just getting started in sales. It was a 1099 position. And I got started full time with this. This is what was like, I was working a regular W-2 job and I was doing this on the side. This is what I was doing full time. I was in sales and I was a commissioned salesperson. And for the first few years, I did okay. The first mistake that I made was I never formed the habit of, I never planned for taxes. I never started putting away money to pay my taxes. And every year at the end of the year, I found myself feeling when I got my 1099, like, where did all this money go? I never had the money put up to pay my taxes. And so I never filed my 1099s. That was one of the first couple of mistakes that I made. And over the years, I got promotions and I started doing even better with the company. I started making more money with the company, but I never formed the habit of planning for taxes and putting up to pay my taxes. So eventually, obviously, I started getting notices from the IRS that they want to place liens and they want to levy stuff and they want to place liens on my accounts. Another thing that I did wrong was when I started getting these letters, I didn't do anything about it, okay? Which is actually one of the takeaways that I'm gonna get into at the end of this video. But I didn't do anything about it. Time goes on, I'm still making money, I'm getting promotions, I'm moving up with the company, but I'm still not filing. And just a side note, it is against the law to tax evasion is against the law, but from my knowledge, it's not against the law to not file your taxes, okay? So, but the problem is when you don't file your taxes, the IRS files your taxes for you. They file the 1099s that they have on record that the companies that are paying you send in for you. They file that for you. But they don't take into account your expenses, obviously, okay? So for the sake of keeping this story as short as I possibly can, because there's a lot of things that happen throughout the years dealing with this situation, but I can't include it all in this video, okay? Just trying to keep the video as short as possible. So I get out of sales. It's 15 years later. I've been in sales for 15 years. I get out of sales and I get a regular job. And I'm not really making any money at this point. And at this point, I am on record as owing the IRS $480,000. But I'm not in any position at this point. I'm on record also in this position as not being in any point to pay this money. I'm not making any money. So the debt goes into a non-collectible status. And I work this job that I'm at right now because I've gone through a divorce at this point. Me and my wife at that time, we had 2 children. Both of the children, when we got divorced, stayed with me. So I'm having to deal with that. And I'm just having to get stable. My finances are all over the place. Life is crazy. I can't put my name on a mortgage because I owe the IRS. Things are extremely crazy at this point. So I'm working this job essentially to kind of try to get some stability in my life. And it's a W-2 job. I'm not self-employed at this point. And my taxes are being taken out as a W-2 employee. Obviously, they're being taken out before I get my check. And every year, at the end of the year, when I get a tax refund, that immediately goes to the IRS. And this is a state issue and a federal issue as well. The money that I owe to the feds, but I have the same issue exists on the state level. Okay, so every year when I get my returns at this point, they're going directly to the IRS. Me and my wife, when we were still together, my first wife, throughout the years, this situation had bubbled up enough where we felt compelled to do something about it. We turned all of the shoddy paperwork and records that we had that we could come up with to a tax person. I wouldn't really call them a professional, but a tax person, and communicating back and forth with them for 6 months here and there, taking stuff to their house. After about 6 months, they just ran, they just bailed, they just stopped working with us. So there's a bunch of stuff that happened with this situation why I never really did anything about this. But the worst thing you can do when you're in a situation like this is not do anything about it. So after working this job for a few years, my tax debt is in a non-collectible status. It is still accruing interest at this point, but I don't have to worry about the IRS seeking collection at this point. And as long as I stay working this job where I'm not making any money, I don't have to worry about the IRS trying to collect on this debt. But obviously I can't stay in that situation. I got to do something, okay? So I get back into being self-employed. But this time around, I've got new habits, okay? I've got new habits. And by now, I've actually hired what I would call a tax professional. I actually started working with a tax professional while I was still on this W-2 job to help me file my taxes instead of just going to H&R Block to file my taxes. I started working with a tax professional at that point. And so when I got back into self-employment, which was driving a truck, then I just kept using the same tax individual. But again, at this point, I have a different take on taxes, and I have this experience that I've gone through with owing this $480,000, paying it back throughout the years. Like I said, at this point it's 2015 when I first started being self-employed as a truck driver, and I'm starting to chip away at this debt at that point. I've chipped away at it at my job and working with the tax professional and reassessing different years and going through all of the stuff that we've gone through. At that point, I've gotten it down some, okay? And again, at this point, I have different habits, okay? And that kind of brings me to where I am at today, because again, this is a situation that hasn't resolved itself yet. I'm close enough to resolving it that I feel comfortable talking about this now, but it is habits that I can say I have to thank for helping me get out of this situation over the years, okay? This, I would say, is probably, thinking about it now, it's probably the biggest mistake that I've ever made as an entrepreneur. Not filing my taxes, not planning for taxes, not doing proper tax planning. And here's the 3 takeaways that you should get if you're still watching the video at this point from this story that I shared with you. Here are the things that I now do that I didn't do then, and this is why I know I'll never end up in that situation again. The first thing is, as an entrepreneur, you have to get in the habit of keeping really good records, keeping accurate records. One thing a real business does is they, quote unquote, they batch out every evening. A lot of businesses, most businesses batch out after every shift. I would call that they're zeroing out. They're accounting for everything at that point. And as an entrepreneur, I like to do this every week. I account for everything. I zero out everything, all of my income and expenses every single week. This is a habit that you absolutely have to form if you don't want to end up in the situation where you're constantly not prepared when it comes time to pay your taxes. I've never felt more prepared to deal with the IRS than I feel right now. One reason is because now, and for the last several years, I've formed the habit of keeping extremely accurate records, and I do it manually. I keep up with income and expenses through, like, I use Mint, the app mint.com, but like I actually do it manually with pen and paper. To me, that's the best way. The next thing I would recommend, the next thing I do as a result of this experience is I don't wait to get my 1099s from the sources that I get my income from. I don't wait on them to get my 1099s, and I don't have to because I keep accurate enough records of my income. And if you don't know that, you don't have to wait on the people that are paying you to get your 1099s. If they are not prepared, if they're not, you can find yourself filing your taxes late because you're getting your 1099s late. When I was in the process of reassessing, when I hired the tax professional, when we were reassessing, because the IRS will let you refile the years that they filed for you, and they'll let you file them with the appropriate expenses if you got everything that you need to prove it. But I had the opportunity to send 1099s to all of the subcontractors that I was working with in my sales business. I had the opportunity to do that because, I had expenses. I had subcontractors, I had salespeople, I had office expenses, I had vans that I was buying, I had supplies that I was buying. And the IRS will let you go back through and refile all of those things. And I had the opportunity to send 1099s to the people that worked for me. But by that time, it didn't feel right. I didn't feel right with trying to send somebody a 1099 from income that they had made a few years ago. The point of me sharing that with you is, like, if you're waiting on your 1099s from the people that are paying you, and if they don't send you a 1099 because they ain't got their stuff together, okay, you don't file that 1099, you don't file that income, but I would think that they can still send you that 1099 at a later date. And now you're hit with a tax bill for income that you haven't accounted for. So you don't have to wait on your 1099s. If you're good at keeping your records, you can file your 1099s as soon as the IRS says the tax date is here. And the third takeaway from this, the third lesson that I learned is don't ignore your obligations. Specifically when it comes to the IRS, the courts, debt collectors, and your credit. All of those things kind of fall under the same or similar parameters. You always get letters before any action against you is taken. And a lot of us that fall into situations like this, because this happens to a lot of people, that's one reason why I don't have a real issue with sharing this, we don't take any action. We don't do anything. But when you don't take any action, you're actually giving those people permission to move forward with the action that they're saying they're going to take against you. And all of them, the IRS, debt collectors, the courts, and people that are trying to put stuff on your credit, they all give you a certain amount of time to dispute something. But once that window is closed, then whatever action they're trying to take, it moves forward. And once they start taking the action against you, it's nearly impossible to reverse that action. But that happens as a result of you, the individual, taking no action. So when you get letters from any of those people or anybody else from that, for that matter, dealing with issues like that, you have to make sure you respond to them. And I would recommend that you respond to them in writing. Send your letter off in a way that you're getting confirmation when the letter gets delivered. Like, pay a few extra dollars in order to do that, because that gives you a paper trail. You can also do it through email, because that gives you documentation as well, but you need to have these things documented. Documentation beats conversation in situations like this. So if you're going through this situation, which a lot of people are, I know they are, it's not even a big deal, okay? I've like I said, this situation is all but taken care of with me, but it's been a huge thorn in my side for years now. But again, if you're going through this situation, not a big deal. Just handle your business. And to be honest with you, in my opinion, like, this is part of what it is to be an entrepreneur. This is part of some of the things that entrepreneurs go through. If you call yourself a real hustler, this is what it is. Like, you're not even a real hustler if you can't lose it all and then get it all back. Maurice Bay, the Helpful Trucker here. For more helpful CDL tips, go here, or consider subscribing to my YouTube channel right here. You could have been anywhere else in the world, but instead you chose to be here with me, and I really appreciate that.